Jericho 98 is designed to take away the United States' ability to define our struggle for us, but by denying our political prisoners exist inside the prisons and jails of the United States.
We want to release the silence, the hush-hush silence of this United States of snakes, or I mean, your so-called United States of America. It is a fact that the political prisoners that are held here are crippling our movement. We must spread the word when we leave here today to get all political prisoners released. We must.
So hopefully they'll be able to get up there and speak for us, because we're not on them, you know what I'm saying, we're not up there where we can be able to speak for, you know what I'm saying, for ourselves or whatever. You know, they have the power to go up in there and talk for us, and hopefully, you know, we can better the things that's going on out here right now, basically.
Some of our best minds are in jail, and our movement cannot go forward until we get them out. Some of our noble and most respected and capable leaders for the struggle are in jail, and the struggle cannot flower and go forward until we get them out.
My name is Walter Bowe. I was the first political prisoner of the 60s. And I would have played trumpet better, but they didn't give me lessons inside.
They want you to start moving down. Let's start filling it in right here. All right, yeah, they want them to start moving so they can put Trump in the middle. All right. We say no! Black power! What's coming? War! What's coming? War! What's coming? War! Who's gonna win? How are we gonna do it? The hard way. How are we gonna do it? The hard way. How are we gonna do it? The hard way. Whose street? Our street. Whose street? My street. Whose street? My street. Whose street? My street.
All prisoners are political prisoners because of economic conditions, because of sociological reasons. They're all political prisoners. We have to support them all.
To be framed and set up.
He was set up. He was convicted. And everything they used against him has been proven false. They fabricated evidence.
My family was speaking out the truth about this system. in this system, they ain't want to hear the truth. They wanted to hear they wanted my family to tell the lies. My family ain't gonna be telling no lies.
The right to free speech is one of the First Amendments, and everyone has a right to have an opinion. You know, and a lot of different people, a lot of groups that I don't agree with, assemble all the time, all around this country, and they say what they want to say. And everybody should be able to say what they want to say.
For like your show, right? It's a super long discussion, but part of it is if you're framed or locked up for so-called conspiracy charges and clearly for your political intentions, and you're more like equality, world liberation intentions. That's what I call a political prisoner.
We had a struggle going in which we were resisting with all our might oppression, tyranny, racism, and it's because of their choice to devote their lives to that struggle for resistance, to fighting oppression, to taking political action on behalf of colonized and exploited people, that those you are here to honor are behind the walls.
Every Indian on the Indian reservation today is a political prisoner. These people are descendants of Indian people who were put on reservations. When they were put on reservations, they were put on by the United States Army, hence they're prisoners of war.
Well, a prisoner of war is a political prisoner, but it's a different kind of political prisoner. A political prisoner is anyone who's in prison because of their political actions or political beliefs, right? And so that's a political prisoner. So a person who gets in a protest and who's then framed on a murder charge is a political prisoner. A prisoner of war is a person who's actually picked up arms or joined a armed organization in order to fight against that oppression. And they go to jail because of their participation in that organization or the participation in that armed self-defense or armed struggle for liberation. That's a prisoner of war. I'll give you an example. Mumia Abu-Jamal is probably purely a political prisoner. He didn't do at all what they claim he did. So that makes him a political prisoner. Brother Geronimo Pratt was a prisoner of war. He did join an armed unit, the Black Liberation Army, to help protect Black Panther Party headquarters. He went to jail because of that self-defense, as did many others. Sekou Odinga, Sundiata Acoli were part of the Black Liberation Army, and so they're prisoners of war.
This is an open letter from my brother. It says, my name is Russell Maroon Schultz, and I'm a Black New African political prisoner. I was originally arrested in January of 1972 and has since spent over 26 years in prison. I was convicted in relationship to the August 29, 1970 attack on the Philadelphia Fairmount Park police station. That action was taken in retaliation for the unjustified killing of Black youth from that community, as well as the numerous other unjustified killings of Black Panther Party members and Black people during that period.
But I'm here because I became conscious of the fact that if Harriet Tubman was here today, if you bring her forward for today, she would be considered a political prisoner. She would be considered a person possibly charged with 300 counts of interstate trafficking of private property. That is what the slaves were called at that time. So I feel that her spirit is with the political prisoners of today. And if you think that you have the spirit of liberation and you're sitting around doing nothing, then you don't know what freedom is. So I'm real happy to be able to share in this march today. I feel proud that I can share this with my children, with my neighbors. I think of Frederick Douglass. He would also be a political prisoner today, because had he been caught for slapping the slave master who felt he had a right to abuse him, he would also be in those prisons. So I think that gives us a lot to think about. Who are you to the political prisoner? Are you the support? You know, are you the person who ignores them? Are you the person who honors your ancestors like Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass?
I now read the statement from Sylvia Baldini. In the past 30 years, millions of people marched along the same route you took today to protest American invasions abroad and to voice support for human rights and self-determination. Prior to going to jail, some of my most exhilarating moments occurred in the same streets while protesting the war in Vietnam, demanding independence for Puerto Rico, fighting for women's right to control over their own bodies, and supporting the civil rights movement. Today, while I work in the federal prison at Danbury, I will rejoice in the knowledge that a march is taking place to demand the release of all political prisoners and prisoners of war. For too long, those like myself, jailed because of their actions in support of national liberation movements or because of their opposition to nuclear weapons, have been doing their time in anonymity, our names, identities, and histories unknown.
Well, the U.S. denies that we have political prisoners. I think it's something that we need to make enough noise about to expose, because people are either in denial or they don't know. But we have over 100 political prisoners, and supposedly the U.S. is the land of the free. We need to let people know that these people who fought for our freedom, these people who fought for everything that we stand for today, are being punished for fame for crimes, documented proof, all falsified. But still, Mumia, they're trying to sign his death warrant again, trying to kill him for his political beliefs, and that's not supposed to happen supposedly in the land of the free.
The government in the United States doesn't even acknowledge that we have political prisoners in this country. But there are at least 100 or over 100, and there may be 200 or more. I'm not certain of the figure, but it's well over 100.
Well, it's not in Puerto Rico where they are. There are Puerto Ricans that are prisoners here in the United States, and not many people know that.
Well, first it was a wonderful day, and I found out they was having a parade for, and I see the black liberation flags, and they're hollering freedom, and I do believe in freedom for all people, and free all of the political prisoners. And I wholeheartedly believe in it.
So you believe that there are political prisoners in the United States?
Yes, I do.
And who are these political prisoners?
Well, let's see. It's a lot. I can't think of nobody right offhand, but it's a lot from back in the 60s.
I hope that today's mobilization will give rise to many initiatives, local and national, that will make Rochelle McGee, Carmen Valentin, Leonard Peltier, Raymond Levasseur, to name a few, a source of inspiration for today's youth. I look forward to the day when instead of worshiping Michael Jordan, young people will follow the example of someone like Albert Noah Washington. Let's give it up for that. To hell with being like Mike.
Trying to learn as much as we can about political prisoners or whatever they have done for us, because nowadays realize there's a lot of things that a lot of people that done for us that's not here to tell us about it, and by coming down here is basically learning what we have missed on and what we basically are missing on right now, and try wising ourselves to get a little bit better.
Right, and maybe they'll be free so they can tell us from there,
right, from the truth point of view, their point of view, of how things really happened back then.
Yeah.
I recognize your name. I mean, you were a political prisoner once yourself. Military resistance.
I was GI, drafted into the Army in 1968, given orders to go to Vietnam. I refused to go to Vietnam along with 5 other GIs. I was part of the Fort Lewis 6. So I know about the question of political prisoners from the inside.
Some of us who have come here are former political prisoners, or we're the wives of former political prisoners, or their children, or the children of current political prisoners, their comrades, their daughters, their parents. And those of us, including them, who have given our all to expand this little perverted notion of democracy they have in this country. We started when there was a country that only allowed in many regions white people to vote. that violence against blacks was the order of the day, we helped pull apart that vice. We helped open it so that some of you who are now in college could actually go to college. So some of you who are now working for the Secret Service could actually be hired by the Secret Service. There is nothing, however, like nothing like the transformation and values that we put our lives on the line for.
We rocked this mighty imperialist country to its foundations. And one of the reasons we know that we rocked it to its foundations is that they still today look back to the 1960s and talk about all the horrible things. When you look at the people who run the system today, they talk about all the horrible things that happened back in the 60s. So we gave them a lot of trouble. So that's part of our impact. I think these political prisoners actually represent another part of our impact, and that some of the people who struggled then have been criminalized and are still in jail. But as you can see today, they're serving as a bridge to a new generation. Because a lot of people who weren't even around when some of the Black Panthers are in jail, or some of the fighters from the Puerto Rican National Liberation Movement were in jail. A lot of these people here weren't around then, but now they're a part of the movement demanding freedom for these people who fought for freedom before they were even alive. So these prisoners are serving as a bridge to the new generation. I think that's another part of the legacy of the struggle that my generation.
To this day, I still don't understand a lot about Black Panther. You know, I have walked through here and talked to some guys out here about Black Panther, how they're trying to organize it all over again through the whole United States, you know.
I don't believe Bob Marley died from cancer. 31 years ago, I would have been a Panther.
So when I used to be a Black Panther, you understand, for peace and love.
And this was one of the things I missed, you know, about the Black Panthers. It was always, when I was coming up, I heard they was drug dealers, you know, killing people, all violence, you know what I'm saying?
I've been in the penitentiary, you understand, all power to the people.
But Black Panthers, they was really, you know, trying to just stand for something, you know, freedom, black people, you know. I watched a movie about Black Panthers, about stoplights, you know what I'm saying? That was a good influence on me, you know, because it's that me know, well, hey, we can't get together.
All power to the people. All power to the people. I bring you greetings from the belly of the beast. I bring you greetings from Eddie Conway deep down in 28 years. April 26th will be 28 years in a day, going into 29 years. Eddie was on a path of saving our people. He joined the Black Panther Party early after he got out of the military serving this country, and decided that the war was not with other people of color around the world, but the war was with the fascist, racist, oppressive government that's here in the United States. He consciously decided that it was more important to feed children at a breakfast program and to make sure that they had the ability to see a doctor and be treated for their health when they were ill. It was more important to put shoes on children's feet. It was more important to have fathers and mothers practicing kujichagulia, self-determination. It was more important to feed the soul of the human people and the spirit of the people than it was to languish with this government who has no regard for human people. He decided that that was his plight. And because he did that, he joined the Black Panther Party. And when he joined the Black Panther Party, because he was so serious about what he did, he found some improprieties with some agents that were acting as though they were people and like they were really, you know, down with the struggle, but they were really agents trying to destroy the struggle. And when he ratted them out, when he pulled them out, weeded them out, and he told the people that these are the enemies, these are not struggling revolutionaries. After he did that and they were purged out of the system, and Baltimore chapter just began to do just great things in the community, they said that this man must go, so they targeted him.
And a lot of the people who have waged this war, who are now behind the prison walls, are people who are victims of the counterintelligence program.
Eddie Conway is also a Panther who was targeted by COINTELPRO. He was also falsely accused of killing a police officer and assaulting another. They gave him 30 years for each of the assaults, and they gave him life for a man he did not kill.
It's not coincidence. What? It's been too many steady incidents. It could have been the Klan who put that bomb in the Olympics, but it probably was the FBI. Deep at the core, cause if they make us all panic, they can start martial law.
I ain't brought this gun over here. I ain't bring that cocaine. And y'all know, CIA, y'all did it.
Cause I don't believe a word of what the president said. He filling our head with lies. Got us hypnotized when he be speaking in cold words about crime and poverty, drugs, welfare, prisons, guns, and robbery. It really means us. There's no excuse for the slander, but what's good for the goose is still good for the gander. See, I don't believe Bob Marley died from cancer. 31 years ago, I would have been a Panther. They killed Huey cause they knew he had the answer. The views that you see in the news is propaganda. We don't believe Bob Marley died from cancer. 31 years ago, we would have been a Panther. They killed Huey cause they knew he had the answer. The views that you see in the news, motherfucking propaganda.
Because I don't want my identity known.
What do you think would happen if your identity was known?
Just that it would be known.
Yeah, known by who?
Just known by people. As activists itself, why the political prisoners are in jail is because of their faces are known, you know, and it's like, as far as, I think that it's like more better like tactic if I don't let them see my face. I can do more like good stuff that way.
Well, we've uncovered through the Freedom of Information Act documents that came from the White House, from Nixon's White House, ordering the FBI and the BIA to concentrate on the American Indian movement, and from there develop the plan to try and crush the American Indian movement.
I mean, all they need to do is read the Church Committee report, which is a committee report not published by a radical revolutionary. It's the United States Senate's report on what the United States government did during the Hoover years. It describes the terror that they perpetrated on African people, the killing of Fred Hampton, Mark Clark, the turning of the US organization against the Black Panther Party and vice versa, the infiltration of the various different groups, the attempt to discredit the Republic of New Africa. These are documented events which actually FBI and CIA and various other persons have admitted to. They need to visit Mississippi, the Sovereignty Commission reports, which basically is the local version of the COINTELPRO program. And so these things are well documented, even by conservative sources. So there's no question that they happen. The only question is, what do we do to stop it?
Well, of course, that's a hypothetical question. This White House will never release anybody. The Justice Department will never release. It'll be the constant pressure that is put on by the community and the people. I mean, that's what freed Geronimo Pratt. The community has to keep going, has to keep pressuring. That's where the power is at. I mean, these courts aren't going to listen to anybody, and this White House is not going to listen to anybody. It is the community that has to speak up. So that's where the real power is at.
Have you heard about Leonard Peltier before?
Yes, I have.
What do you know about him?
All kinds of stuff. Like what?
Well, I mean, how do you become a political prisoner, for instance?
He was suspected of killing those 2 FBI agents in a shootout in June of, what was it, 70? I can't remember.
That's pretty good. How about you? What do you know about Leonard?
Not much more than he does.
Really? It's just finding out about it. What kind of stuff is it that they have?
I read In the Spirit of Crazy Horse twice in the last couple of years. So I don't know, there wasn't that much information about what's going on today, and we happened to find out about it, so we come out.
How'd you hear about this?
There was a flyer at a concert, and
which concert?
The Super Bowl of Hardcore. It was at the Positive Force table.
Excellent.
So we decided to come on down and check it out.
Leonard Peltier is a native son. I believe he's from Canada. He's been accused of killing an FBI man, but it's been proven that his gun did not, fire the bullet. And it's just the United States government wanting just anyone to pay for the crime. And he's been locked up for since 1975.
On the day of the shootout back in the late 70s,
at the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, right here in Washington, D.C. The sellout Dick Wilson came to Washington, D.C. and he deeded to the United States government 1/8 of the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation that contained uranium. Everybody knows what uranium is used for. At the same time, the FBI came into a highly tensed area at Pine Ridge Indian Reservation where Leonard Peltier was encamped with about 3 men and about 10 women and 15 children, a bunch of elders, and they attacked the camp.
During the Wounded Knee occupation, which was in 1973, there were many bad things going on at the Pine Ridge with the tribal councils, and we were called up there to support the traditional Native people. And Leonard was just one of those people who went to support and who believed in freedom, who believed in honoring the treaties that were made with our people, and so that's why we all went up there.
And an incident occurred where Peltier and the adult men there defended the elders and children there. It resulted in the fact that one man, Joe Stuntz, Indian, was shot and killed, and there was 2 FBI agents killed. The Indian people escaped. The FBI launched the greatest manhunt, even greater than John Dillon, which are looking for these people. And they extradited Peltier from Canada with affidavits signed by a woman named Merle Poolbear, who was a half-crazy Indian, who didn't even know Leonard Peltier, and told the FBI, per their bidding, that she was his lover, and that he had admitted to her that he had did the killings, which was a lie. Peltier didn't even know who she was, never laid eyes on her or anything.
Snitches. We call them snitches, who lie because of pecuniary benefits that are given to them by the federal government, and who come into court and who give false testimony, and who in fact become the instrument for the ultimate conviction of those freedom fighters who are involved in many instances First Amendment activities.
Well, with these affidavits, he was extradited from Canada illegally. He went to Canada, to their good buddy Canada, and used these false affidavits, tricked them. No honor among thieves. Peltier was brought back to the States, where he was tried and convicted.
Leonard was convicted as the shooter. Bear that in mind. Later on, through the Freedom of Information Act, we found out through William Kunstler that the shell casing that he was convicted of, that was the primary evidence, said they didn't even fit his gun. I'd also like to point out that the director of the FBI in an appellate court hearing said, we don't know who killed the FBI agents, but Leonard is still in jail. Still in jail. Over 23 years.
I think we have to understand that America has had a very bad, ugly history with detaining people.
Invaders and conquerors have a curious logic. They make themselves to be the native sons and daughters, the founding fathers, the discoverers, while the indigenous people are misnamed Indians, treated as animals and slaughtered, forced off their lands, forced to speak their conqueror's language, English, which now becomes the native tongue, forced to worship their conqueror's God, forced to give up their culture, their dress, their hair, their names, their identity, and then made into noble savages and modern day brand labels for malt liquors, jeeps, and sport team mascots. Yes, invaders and conquerors have a curious logic.
During the last century, this government has detained native people. For the last 500 years, we have been political prisoners in our own country. I mean to be born native is to be born a political prisoner.
The United States has been waging war against Indians since they got here. They've been waging war against Puerto Ricans since the Spanish-American War in 1898. they have been waging war against Africans during slavery, and then after we got out of slavery, and we were never offered the opportunity to choose our own political future.
Puerto Rico is a colony of the United States. It has been since 1898, since the United States achieved the island in the Spanish-American War, and ever it's being occupied by the military, and it's not a free nation. They have no say-so in what their choice of anything. It's totally governed by the United States, and it's a colony, and it needs to be free.
My people are only subjects of American slave trade, not of any country, not of any international family. How in the hell do you think you're going to get the international tribunal to listen to you when you have no connection with any nation?
In other words, some of our people would have said after slavery, I'll be glad to be a U.S. citizen since we have ended slavery. Others would have said, give me my money and let me go back to Africa, you know, back in quotation marks, because we've had several generations. And others would have said, we want the independent state.
They're saying, hey, you got to knuckle under to the system. Don't you know you're not American Indians, you're Americans, and you don't have any rights as Indian people. They're saying, we've conquered you as a conquered people, you have to do what we say.
Elizama Escobar. Ricardo Jiménez. Oscar López Rivera.
Aida Luz Rodríguez. Carmen Valentín. Alicia Rodríguez.
Well, I begin to tell you that two of the prisoners are my daughters. I'm the mother of Ida Luz and Alicia Rodriguez, and they were arrested on April 4th of 1980. Now on April 4th, they're going to be 18 years in prison. And they're serving sentences that go from 83 to 85 years. And then at this point, they are in Dublin, in California. Well, they were put in jail for seditious conspiracy, which means that they were organizing to bring down the government of the United States by force. Now, how can the United States sentence them to these long sentences for seditious conspiracy? See, Puerto Rico is not a state of the Union. Puerto Rico is a nation. And every Puerto Rican has the right, as a people, to fight for its liberation. And the seditious conspiracy doesn't apply to a Puerto Rican. So 18 years in prison, we, as the group, as families, and as members of the committee, a member of the community, are saying that they are in prison illegally, that they have to come out. This one is Elsie Pagan with her son, Guillermo. Now, Guillermo, his father is in exile in Cuba, and his mom is in Dublin, in California. That one is Carmen Valentin. Carmen Valentin was given 98-year sentence. She is incarcerated in Dublin, California.
How are they doing? What are their conditions? What do they tell you? How's their spirit?
At this point, now this one here is Ricardo Jiménez. And Ricardo Jiménez got 98 years sentence too. He is in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania now. This is Alicia Rodriguez, one of my daughters. She's presently incarcerated in Dublin, California. She has 85 years sentence.
Because I feel the weight of oppression of society myself, so I can relate.
What kind of oppression do you feel?
Working 40 hours a week, 40 years of life to pay. It's the bottom line. You name it. You gotta eat, you gotta work.
But consider this irony of colonialism. The European settlers who came as pilgrims were ex-prisoners, religious rebels and small farmers, persecuted in England and other European countries. Consider the poor trash of the continent, prostitutes, thieves, dissidents, and heretics, just like John Africa and the Moo family who settled a small section of a North Philly neighborhood as an alternative religious community. The white settler colonialists took up armed struggle against England to win their independence and to become the U.S. government, who then proceeded to murder, steal, persecute, oppress, criminalize, sentence, imprison, and execute the poor, the dissident, the different. But I know the original affirmative action was white supremacy. The original illegal immigrant was Christopher Columbus. The original welfare began with patriarchy.
I want to say one quick thing, particularly as a white person here, and the fact is that there are about a dozen white political prisoners in this country as well. Our history of struggle as a people here is pretty spotty. Unfortunately, the vast majority of white people most of the time have gone with the flow of the ruling class in this country. But I think the people in prison represent a different history that we can continue to build on. Whatever our own particular political lines were, I guarantee you, and I know almost all of them personally, people are totally committed against racism, people are totally committed against sexism, against every form of oppression, and know that we'll only have a progressive country and a revolutionary struggle if it's really based on concrete solidarity.
Free the new African Black Belt Nation. Free Aztlan, the oppressed Chicano Nation. Free Puerto Rico. Liberation to Asian Pacific Americans. Free Hawaii. And matriarchal socialism for everyone.
The Plow published a new book about Oscar Romero, the cardinal who was assassinated. Yeah. Yeah, I got it here.
What group are you representing?
What group am I?
I mean, who
representing me.
All right.
Who I am, a human being. What other group is there?
Agents for Jericho, right over here. Agents for Jericho. Hold down here. Hold that camera on those cameras. We definitely need to support the million you get, and we definitely need to get our white heart. Oh my knees. This is the greatest thing. It's for Yuri Kochiyama from this group called Asia and Asian Sisters. That's right. And they come all the way from the Midwest to give this to Yuri Kochiyama as her dedication to political prisoners.
Then we're gonna go find Yuri right now.
This is the first time meeting her.
Oh, okay. All right, let's find her. I'll go with you.
Done.
We have to protect self. We have to defend self. And we have to raise up 1 week to get out in a conscious way so that when political oppression comes down, it should not take years and years and decades for us to free our political prisoners. Now, we are standing across the street from the White House. There have been many demonstrations in this park for the last 30, 40, 50 years. But I believe that today's gathering is most significant because we're saying to ourselves, we're saying to our children, and we're saying to the communities in which we represent that we have not forgotten those prisoners of war. As we step up out the
give you this bear that also has this on it, and we also want to give you your own t-shirt too. Really? Yes, for you, ma'am. For you.
That we raise the prison gate, that we open the prison doors for all the hundreds of thousands of brothers.
Yuri Kochiyama is really famous because she was a personal friend of Malcolm X's. She started working in the struggle over 35 years ago with the civil rights movement and the Black liberation struggle. And she's helped with all sorts of struggles, from the Puerto Rican independence struggle to working for Japanese American redress and reparations for the internment camps to nuclear disarmament. I mean, she's worked on every major struggle dealing with people of color.
I want to take a moment to express my profound admiration for 3 people who have done so much and dedicated so much of their time, their energy, and their love to helping free political prisoners. The first person I want to talk about is Yuri Kuchiyama, who, as a child, was victimized when Japanese Americans were herded into concentration camps as a result of racist U.S. policies during World War II. She was always there for us, came to visit us, left us commissary money, and struggled for our liberation when most people in the world didn't know there were political prisoners in the United States. And there are a whole lot of people who still don't know.
You go into the jails and visit various prisoners. Is that what you've done?
Yes, I have.
Tell me what that experience is like.
Well, I found out that prisons are very cold and lifeless. The men in there are full of life and they just really enjoy visits. But I think America is trying to isolate them so that they cannot keep in touch with the world.
And as an attorney, I get the opportunity and really the privilege to go inside a lot of the prisons and to meet the political prisoners. And what I think the reason that a lot of people do not know about them and do not work about them is that the government has been effective in dehumanizing them and depersonalizing the political prisoners. People don't know what Bashir Hamid is like, what Susan Rosenberg is like, that Marilyn Buck is a poet, that Susan Rosenberg has won PEN Awards for short stories. And the conditions that they are kept under reinforce that isolation.
Leonard's continuing having some health problems coming from an operation that the Bureau of Prisons did on his jaw.
Sekou Odinga is currently in Lompoc, which is in California, 23-hour lockdown, harassed constantly. Matulu Shakur, another victim of harassment by the U.S. government, constantly transferred from prison to prison, kept away from loved ones.
When he petitioned for his medical records so he could get a second opinion, they wouldn't give it to him, and he had to go to court to get his medical records.
Raymond Luke Lavassa, who I was also fortunate enough to represent, has been in the U.S. Penitentiary's torture facility in Florence, Colorado for the last 8 years.
I don't know whether people know what it means to be on death row. You're not in general population. It means that you're locked in a cell by yourself with nothing but a bed, a toilet, a sink, and a little bench to write on. As Mumia says, it's like being locked in your bathroom for 17 years.
Bashir Hamid, one of the political prisoners in New York State, has been in solitary confinement for the last 2 years.
They almost killed him on the operating table. He went into convulsions. He went into a coma for 14 hours. They had to give him 11 pints of blood.
He's allowed no contact visits with his family. He has grandchildren that he's never been allowed to touch.
We're trying to make a stand, and we're making a stand now, and I appreciate every last one of you, and the people that had to leave, I do understand, because I believe all of you have families, and there's no right to take somebody's father from them, or let alone just give my father another trial. All we're asking is justice. Mumia was not a violent man, never was. So all we want to do is give him another try. Thank you.
He's charged with murdering a police officer. It's all false evidence. He was never given a fair trial. He was never given a good lawyer. He dismissed his lawyer. His lawyer was just out of law school. Come on, it's the biggest travesty.
We have to continue to organize and organize.
But I am somewhat familiar with the Mumia Abu-Jamal case.
Yeah, what do you know about it?
Well, basically I know that he was arrested for killing an officer during the first move incident, not the second, and that he's been on death row basically since then. And I'm hoping that all of this that people are doing right now will definitely help him to be free.
The MOVE organization, I'm a MOVE member. My name is Ramona Africa, and I minister communication for the MOVE organization. And MOVE people are not going to sit back idly and quietly while this government plans premeditated murder, plans to murder an innocent man. Mumia is our brother, whether people know it or not. He is all of our brother. And we're not going to sit back and watch this government kill him. We're going to do everything possible to save Mumia's life, to bring our brother home.
He didn't kill a cop. And it's nice that he got a lot of support. A lot of people behind him. It's beautiful. If I wasn't working today, I'd be right in that crowd walking with him.
That's beautiful.
We came out to show our support.
Mumia.
All right, did you need everything?
We all left work. We might get fired, but we came out. We're supposed to be working, but we left work to support Mumia.
Yeah, we came out there.
Free Mumia Abu Jamal. Brick by brick, wall by wall.
What does Mumia mean to you?
Well, I'm just here to learn about what his struggle is. Personally, I don't think he has any real personal meaning in my life.
Well, I think because Mumia speaks about a lot of issues that impact a lot of people, and I think that, well, first and foremost, because he's a political prisoner, and that affects all of us, no matter who we are. And I think if we let them kill him, then it could be any of us, you know.
Mumia is important to me because he's a symbol of all liberation movements, and he's been driven out of the public view, and he's going to be killed for his views, for standing up and fighting for the people who don't have a voice. That's why this is important to me.
He's important because in Europe, the death penalty is a thing of the past. He's important because in Europe he's recognized as a great writer. He's important because in Europe his writings are studied in schools. He's important because he's a gentle person and he's innocent. He's important because he's become a symbol against the death penalty in the greatest democracy, so-called democracy in the world.
A lot of them rich kids are the kids in that grade. They ain't even like, not all the guys, the kids in this grade don't understand it like me and you do. You live in the city. I can't believe how many people there are. How many think there are so far? 30,000? There was 1,500 down there out of the Blue Day game. March was.
That Mumia's case is one of the greatest cases of police brutality and the miscarriage of justice in the history of this country. And we believe that we must struggle not only to free Mumia, but Mumia represents thousands of other people who have been victimized by police brutality and judicial misconduct. He is the symbol. So as we fight to free him, we also fight to free all of those who've been victimized by injustice in this country.
What does Mumia mean to you? What does Mumia mean to you?
Black man.
What's
Mumia first came to public attention, or at least to the attention of the police, when he was 14 years old, as he was one of the leaders of a campaign to rename Benjamin Franklin High School after Malcolm X here in Philadelphia. He accumulated an FBI surveillance file beginning then that runs over 600 pages. He was one of the founders of the Black Panther Party in Philadelphia, and worked on the West Coast in their national newspaper. He then came back to Philadelphia, where he began a career as a radio journalist. The incident in which he was arrested is a rather strange one. He was driving a cab, moonlighting to support his family at night, and he came upon a situation in the red light district south of downtown in Philadelphia where the police had stopped his brother for a traffic violation, and he saw a white police officer beating his brother, and he ran over to intervene or see what was happening, and the street was full of people because the bars had just let out. A whole big altercation ensued. Gunfire broke out. out, and in the end, Mumia was laying on the street, shot in the stomach. He almost died. A police officer who was beating his brother was shot and killed. The brother was standing nearby, bloody from the attack that had happened to him. And when other police arrived, they just assumed that Mumia was the perpetrator.
I got beaten like Rodney King in December 17, 1994. I know, and I got charged for assault a police officer.
They beat him viciously, drove him around for 45 minutes before taking him to the hospital in the hopes that he would die.
They came over my house. I took too long to listen, so they started beating on me. So once I was down, they took the club and hit me 6 straight times in my head. You can see the scar right here over my lip, one side. They knocked out my tooth. This Philadelphia for you. The city that loves you back.
City of brotherly love.
The hard way.
And not only was he arrested and beaten, when he woke up in the hospital, he was in intense pain because one of the officers guarding him was standing on the urine bag below his bed, forcing urine back up into his bladder, into his kidneys. He'd been almost a constant victim of police brutality. Mumia had that summer been covering the trial of John Africa in Philadelphia and had been greatly impressed by the activities of the MOVE people and their staunchness in standing up to the authorities and refusing to buckle under and to give in and capitulate.
Mumia was the only journalist who did one simple thing. He not only told the police version of confrontations with police and police, activity, but he came to MOVE and he, got what we had to say, and he put out everything. He put out what the police were saying, and he put out what MOVE was saying. That is something that had never been done. Mumia not only did commentaries on MOVE, but on issues, around the globe, and on issues, of police brutality, police corruption, judicial corruption, what was going on with poor people. That's why Mumia was called the voice of the voiceless.
As a result of this, the city hated him. He had actually asked an antagonistic question of Mayor Rizzo at a press conference only a month or two before, and led the mayor to threaten the journalists who were present at the press conference. And as a result, the police decided to actually pin this murder on Mumia.
So it is no flaw that for 17 years I've been on death row because I'm a black genius who chose not to be a safe Negro. But they'll have you believe it's because I shot some copper. But how could I be the murderer when my gun was of a different caliber?
His trial was so grotesquely unfair, even if he's guilty. It was unfair. Witnesses were coerced. The police confessions were totally unbelievable.
His case was characterized by fabrication of evidence, by the withholding of evidence from the defense, by the intimidation of witnesses, and also by coercing and bribing witnesses to lie. One of the principal witnesses against him was a prostitute who has since disappeared, that they basically gave a get-out-of-jail-free card to. After she testified that Mumia was the shooter, every time she was arrested after that, the police would show up in court and ask that she be released without paying any bail, and that's what happened.
I'll be as specific as I can. Gary Walksall, I believe, lied. He perjured himself for saying he remembered the confession 2 months after it happened, and that he didn't realize how important it was the day it happened. I think that's a lie.
Who was that again, Gary?
His name was Gary Walksall. He was a police officer who originally wrote in his report that the Negro male made no comments. 62 or 64 days later, he went, "Oh, I do remember, he confessed."
But this is not a flaw. As my case is 2 months in session before cops remember their confession. As legal perjury is performed to a biased jury, while the judge dismisses defense witnesses when the brother did see 2 other men flee. Can you spell conspiracy?
Yeah, we can. But normally when a court in this country at the appellate level looks at a trial in which there have been such obvious and grievous flaws, they say, well, look, there were some problems, there were some mistakes made, maybe this was not right or that was not right, but on balance, it wouldn't have made any difference if they had been done right, and so on. That's not what this court said. What this court said is that every judicial proceeding that Mumia Abu Jamal has gone through has been perfect. They said that every single witness who was brought forward by Mumia's defense team lied and was unbelievable, including those who said to people and testified as to who actually did do the shooting and that seeing people running from the scene. They said that every single witness that the police brought forward was absolutely credible and told the police the truth, including those witnesses who were obviously changed their stories from what they originally told police officers, and it's in the written record, and including those people who received obvious favors from the police for changing their story. This is a case in which they found that Judge Sabo is not only not biased against Mumia throughout this entire case, and any of you who ever sat for 5 minutes in the courtroom knows what a crock of shit that is, but they said that he ruled correctly on every single motion where he denied the Mumia's attorneys the opportunity to bring new evidence into court. They said that there was no problem whatsoever with knocking 10 prospective jurors off the venue using peremptory challenges just because they were black, even though this has been outlawed by the U.S. Supreme Court. And they said that there was no problem whatsoever in reading from interviews with Mumia about his membership in the Black Panther Party as an argument for why he should be put to death, even though the Supreme Court had outlawed that procedure in another case involving a white prisoner who had belonged to the White Aryan Nation, Aryan Brotherhood gang. And not only that, and this is a little unknown fact about that case, the case of Dawson in Delaware, when the Delaware Supreme Court said, yes, it's okay to use political affiliations and political statements as an argument for a death penalty, what case did the Delaware Supreme Court cite as a precedent? They cited the case of Commonwealth versus Mumia Abu Jamal and said that if it could be done in Mumia's case, then it could be done in Dawson's case. The Supreme Court rejected that entire argument. But then what does the Pennsylvania Supreme Court say? Oh, that doesn't apply in Mumia's case. And perhaps most incredible of all, when it got to the 600 plus pages of FBI documents that were brought into the court that had been obtained by the Freedom of Information Act, showing that Mumia had been under observation by the Philadelphia police and the FBI since he was 14 years old, they said it was perfectly proper to bar this evidence from the court. Why? Because there was no authentication that these actually were FBI documents. Well, that's the level to which this situation has sunk. And the fact that every single point that Mumia raised in his appeal was denied stamps this decision with the fact that this is not a judicial review, it was a political decision. A political decision made at the highest levels in this country to attempt to carry through the execution of Mumia Abu Jamal.
But all this is not a flaw. For in this country, conspiracy is not theory, conspiracy is law.
What's the problem with the way the media has been reporting this?
They haven't been reporting it. They have been blocking it out.
You know, I think that the corporate media toes the line of law and order, legitimizing police authority, the police state, and I don't think that should be the role of journalists, but journalism in America is a business, and it's a business representing the most powerful interests in this society.
My first journalism class, my instructor said there's no such thing. He said you can be fair and you can be accurate, but you can't be objective.
Big newspapers that are trying to keep Mumia's name from being known to the people of Philadelphia and throughout the state of Pennsylvania. They have boycotted all the demonstrations that have been held in Philadelphia, including the wonderful tribunal that was held last December 6th, when 1,500 people came out to demand a new trial for Mumia Abu Jamal, presented all in his previous trials in order to get the word out that Mumia Abu-Jamal is an innocent man and deserves to be free. And we're here today to tell the crime and the daily. What are we going to do? Stop the execution. What are we going to do? Stop the execution. What are we going to do?
And you're going to do it from in front of you? You're going to wear a coat or something?
Well, I was up there for 2 hours. Does that count?
I'm just wondering. All right, thanks very much. Is this like a big story or not?
We'll see.
Sisters and brothers, my name is Monica Moorhead. I'm a leader with Workers' World Party.
Well, even some people who think he's guilty think he was railroaded.
Right, exactly. So now why do you think that was?
Oh, he's dangerous because he's truthful. That's like asking, and I'm not making a religious analogy as much as a political analogy. That's like asking, why do you think they executed Jesus? He stirs up the people. That's what the Bible says anyway. So,
because if you are a political prisoner or a prisoner of war who has been captured, one of the things that you do is to swear allegiance, that you are going to fight against this corrupt system at whatever cost. And the enemy knows that. The state knows that.
You'll understand why these people were taken out of the communities. Because they're organizers, because they're charismatic, because they would lead a movement for progressive social change in this country.
I'm talking about people like Sheikh Omar Abdul Rahman, who is behind the walls in a federal prison in Minnesota. And many of you did not know that the Sheikh Omar Abdul Rahman, one of the reasons why the government came down on him so hard is because whenever he spoke in a mosque or wherever, he always talked about the conditions of oppressed people in this country. That's why they came down on Sheikh Omar Abdul Rahman.
He's a community leader, and his only fault is that he was opposed to the Mubarak regime. And you know that Mubarak's dictatorship is very closely linked with the White House. So to anyone who is a critic, he becomes suspicious in the eyes of the White House. The blind sheikh, you know, he's not a terrorist, he has a consistent record for opposition to dictatorship and has been in prison for many times in Egypt for political issues. Now here they turned him into a terrorist and locked him up for life, claiming that a blind man planned to blow up all of New York. So it's that kind of ridiculous situation into which we are opposing the continuing detention of Sheikh Umar Abdul Rahman and the detention of Nasser Ahmed. We want them to be released unconditionally.
I greet you today on behalf of the Sekou Odinga and Mutulu Shakur Defense Committee. Sekou Odinga and Dr. Mutulu Shakur are just two of the political prisoners of war who were captured in their struggle, in their fight for the liberation of the new African nation. These two brothers were two of the brightest and hard-working and dedicated and dynamic brothers that the struggle has been blessed with, and we need to support them. They was what our community wanted. They was what our community needed. We may not have recognized that then, but the U.S. government recognized that, and that is why they are not here with us today in body, but they are here in spirit, because as our brother Fred Hampton said, you can jail a revolutionary, but you can't jail a revolution, and Jericho 98 is proof of that.
Free all political prisoners, free Herman Bell, free Albert Washington, free Tony Bottoms, Jalil Abdul Muntakim, free the New York Three, free Sundiata Akoli, and leave Assata Shakur alone. Governor Whitman, thank you, sir.
When you go into the courtrooms of the hells of miles of North America, even if you are a casual observer, you will come out of that process with a very clear and astute analysis and conclusion. And that is what I do in terms of representing people who are subjected to the laws of this country. But one thing that I can say about those folks for the most part the folks that go through the criminal justice system in this country at least have the opportunity, for the most part, they at least have the opportunity of obtaining reasonable bail. They at least have certain other opportunities that political prisoners do not have.
My name is Wayne Lum. I'm with the Yuki Kimura Support Committee. And Yuki Kimura was arrested on Jersey Turnpike for possession of explosive devices. Now, according to that charge, the most the judge can give him is 33 months. Because of his political dissidence and his political activities, he was instead given a 30-year sentence. A 30-year sentence instead of 30 months.
They sentenced 9 of my, innocent brothers and sisters in prison for shooting up police officers. 1 police officer, 1 cop with 1 bullet, and, with 1 gun. It's impossible for 9 people to kill 1 cop, with 1 gun and 1 bullet. But yet they gave all 9 of them 100 to 30 years in prison, for a crime that they did not commit.
They have him in prison now for 2 years in a little cell, and they claim they have secret evidence on him. They refuse to show the evidence, so our lawyers cannot fight back in any way because we don't know what the evidence is.
They had no evidence to say that she was connected at all, but because she was an avowed independentista, she got charged.
And I could have been in prison just like Leonard for my belief in standing up for my own people. And that's why he's being held, for his belief. No, he did not commit a crime. He didn't kill an FBI man.
When the Germans invaded France, the people, when they stood up, defended their rights, they were called freedom fighters. When Leonard stood up and defended the elders at Pine Ridge, he was called a militant, a murderer.
It's kind of messed up how they have to do time for doing right. I didn't know doing right was a crime.
The vast majority of people don't think that. The vast majority of people really don't know their cases. They don't know about these people. The only people that run that kind of thing are people who are backwards, right-wing reactionary, and who are really trying to protect the integrity. I hate to use that word because no integrity exists in the American criminal justice system. But they're trying to defend the criminal justice system. They know nothing about these cases. They're just trying to, they're in denial. They're refusing to admit, just like people on drugs refuse to admit they have a problem. They don't want to admit they have a problem. But you can't know the facts behind these cases and still maintain that they're criminals. There's no way. And in fact, juries have often reflected that in their verdicts. Most of the people who are in jail are not in jail because they've come before fair juries. Any fair jury has acquitted. Sada Shakur, who's in exile, was acquitted 8 times in 8 different trials. She's in jail because they couldn't convict her. So then they took her to an all-white jury in New Jersey, a bunch of backward bohemians who basically, and racists, who basically took the position that she's here, a cop is dead, so we're going to convict her. An all-white jury sentenced her to life plus 30 years. So that's why she's in jail. So I don't think that the majority of people nationwide or internationally take that position. Certainly the majority of informed African people don't. So I think that the solution to the question that you raised, the appearance, is that we got to get more information.
We got to go all out, get organized right now, know what I mean? For real. Because it's a police state we live in. Bad press, y'all. Yeah, see that mic? What? I throw a Molotov cocktail at the precinct. You know how we think. Organize the hood under our chink banners. Red, black, and green instead of gang bandanas. FBI spying on us through the radio and them hitting cameras in the street light. Watching society with no respect for my people's right to privacy. I take a slug for the cause like Huey P. While all you fake niggas try to copy Master P, I wanna be free to live. Able to have what I need to live. Bring the power back to the street where the people live. Sick of working for crumbs, filling up the prisons, dying over money and relying on religion for help. We do for self like ants in a colony. Organize the wealth into a socialist economy, a way of life based off the common needs. And all my comrades is ready, we just spreading the seeds. The average black male lived a third of his life in a jail cell, cause the world is controlled by the white male. And the people don't never get justice, and the women don't never get respected, and the problems don't never get solved, and the jobs don't never pay enough, so the rent always be late. Can you The government is has criminalized radical and revolutionary activity by putting these people in jail and throwing the key away. We can't let that go down. We especially can't let it go down today when we look at all the things that this capitalist system is doing to people. You know, they're throwing women and children off welfare. They're cutting health care, slashing education, you know, all kinds of other things they're doing to people, building jails and prisons, you know, and taking jobs out of communities. We can't allow them to criminalize resistance because we need a whole lot of resistance today.
And basically, they're cutting everything that we benefit from. Right. You know, it's a lot of youth mothers out here. You know, it's a lot of mothers out here with baby fathers that's locked up. You know, they cutting down the welfare. How are they supposed to survive? It's hard enough it is for them to get jobs out here because they have no training.
We look at unemployment as being an effect of the capitalist marketplace, that capitalism requires a pool of unemployed workers to keep all our wages down.
How is it possible for us to escape their oppression, for anyone to escape oppression, if they're not granted the economic or educational opportunities to escape that oppression?
Well, mainly it's the whole system, for real. You know, it's the whole system that want to uphold money, uphold industry. It's the whole system, the cops, the judges, you know, the districts, the mayors, and all of them.
There's a lot of people that's been incarcerated that if they had money, they'd have won their cases. A lot of people that's incarcerated that didn't commit a crime, but by them not having any money to ascertain a good lawyer to deal with the legal process in the court system, they was found guilty and convicted and given life or death sentences in the court system.
The 150 political prisoners for whom we demand amnesty are doing time in an ever-expanding system of prisons and jails in which almost 2 million people are caged. Almost 2 million people are caged. This system can now be called a prison industrial complex. A prison industrial complex. In other words, there is this phenomenal expansion of jails and prisons and vast increase of the numbers of men and women who are under the supervision and surveillance of the criminal justice system. And there is an increasingly symbiotic relationship between the corporate capitalist structure in this country and the punishment industry.
MOVE is fighting against this system because they don't believe in life. They don't care about life at all. All this system care about is money and dollars. That's why they got jails for the industry that they make money with.
They had me in there to work in the factories to make their money. You know, and that's what it is, indentured servants. You know, indentured servitude, that's what it's all about. It's about profit now.
In other words, punishment has become profitable. Punishment is a source of profit.
The prison system used to be about punishment. It never was about rehabilitation. But now it's about profit. It's about big business and money. And private industry and this government is making millions and billions of dollars.
And in this prison industrial complex, there is the increasing use of the bodies of people of color as the raw material for this profit. Slavery, absolutely.
And that's a struggle that begins with the fight on the plantations and in the cities and in the bayous and on the dirt roads to abolish slavery. A fight that was successful up to a point. Slavery was in fact abolished, and in fact in the United States Constitution the only mention of slavery in words is in the 13th Amendment, when it says that slavery and involuntary servitude shall be abolished except in punishment for a crime for which you've been duly convicted. And so therefore those prisoners who are political prisoners, and many prisoners, can be legally reduced to slaves, legally tortured, and their entire existence turned into a hell that we thought we'd ended when we ended slavery.
We work, we get screwed, capital takes our money, capital takes our product, capital takes our lives, capital controls us since our birth.
What's your name? Say we're protesting against police brutality. Okay. You protesting against police brutality? Say, so when I get bigger, it won't happen to me. And nobody in my generation.
This is the Stolen Lives project. Stolen Lives project is collects the names of victims of police all over the country between the period 1990 and the present, and attempt to collect and document these victims. And it's actually published in a book, the Stolen Lives book, which is a project of the October 22nd Coalition to Stop Police Brutality, the National Lawyers Guild, and the Anthony Baez Foundation.
So these are people who've been murdered by the police?
Murdered by the police, right.
Dante Dawson, everybody's aware of him getting killed a month ago. They didn't put it in the paper that the same police, De Pasquale, who beat to death Moise de Jesus 4 years ago, also beat Dante Dawson the night before he came back and killed him. He beat him and robbed him of his beeper and wallet. The next night, they say they don't know why he shot Dante in the back of the head to keep the boy quiet, so he wouldn't complain about the injustice that went down on him the night before. This is sheer premeditated murder.
Secondly, it represents the weapon that they're using against our community, particularly in places like Mississippi, where every day I'm confronted with young brothers and sisters, and sometimes older brothers and sisters, who are threatened with death by the state in the state's effort to liquidate and to extinguish our resistance to oppression. Whether that resistance surfaces itself in clearly political ways, or whether misguided brothers and sisters fight against the hardships in their lives by getting involved in antisocial behavior, or just being close to that kind of behavior and being misidentified as the so-called criminal, right?
Another guy by the name of Philip McCall. This man was killed May the 18th of this year. The man was in his daughter's house, babysitting his 2 grandchildren, a 1 and a 4-year-old. When the doorbell rang and the 4-year-old went and opened the door, there was Federal Marshal Garwood and 2 other federal marshals. Came in, went into the backyard where the man was lounging with his grandbaby, tell him to sit, get up and put his hands in the air. Give up. The man stood up, 3 witnesses said he put his hands in the air. He was then in turn point blank shot 5 times. There's a pool of blood from the area where he fell by the chair where he was sitting to the fence where they drug his body, said he had a fork he tried to attack them with, and then tried to get away. How can you get shot in the chest, under the arm, and in the front of both your legs if you're going in the other direction? You know, your back would have had some kind of bullets.
How many names do you have?
Currently there's 500 plus. But what we've discovered is that this really is just the beginning. Every time we take out the book, we hear of more cases, we learn of more people stepping forward. We have whole states that aren't listed, which we know that there's people there. And it actually shows how much it's really an epidemic, particularly against the generation of youth, mainly people of color, Black, Latino, Asian, although there are also some white Caucasian names listed as well. But it's sort of it shows clearly that it's an attack upon a people and an age group.
How difficult is it to get those names, to get the police to turn over the names of people who have been killed by them?
It's extremely difficult to get it from the police or the authorities. It's actually, they don't record it as police murder. They record it as things that happen in the course of duty, you know. So the way that we've collected it is mainly through one, if you hold public events like speak outs or whatever, and people hear about it, and then they come forward with their stories, and then you investigate it. Also, newspaper accounts, investigating things that are reported on and going, to the scene and talking to people about it, or sometimes doing a search through legal documents as well. That's the other way that we go about finding about it.
Bring the going back to the street where the people live. Sick of working for crumbs, filling up the prisons, dying over money and relying on religion for help. We do for self like ants in a colony. Organize the wealth into a socialist economy, a way of life based off the common needs. And all my comrades is ready, we just spreading the seeds. Dad is black male, live a third of his life in a jail cell, cause the world is controlled by the white male. And the people don't never get respected, and the women don't never get respected, and the problems don't never get solved, and the jobs don't never pay enough, so the rent always be late. Can you relate? We living in a police state with no release date. Word out, why? Red, black, and green. Red, black, and green. Peace, y'all. Red, black, and green. Freedom. Yo, what's up, dog? That they have to work for those problems. And it is important of a political prisoner and a prisoner of war, because they don't just sit on their ass and theorize about something about this situation, regular situation. They go into effect. They go into effect right away in an attempt to correct taking off our children, our grandmothers like Don Republicans in New York City, or any one of our people. They go into effect because they believe in an eye for an eye.
This brother's a poet. You want to kick him something?
Yo, I'll kick something. All right. Let's see. No cutbacks, stop racism and police brutality, jobs not jails. We want housing for poor people, hands off rent stabilization, cause a raising of rent and its privatization equals gentrification. Eliminate concentration camps, the ones they call now reservations, and restore all sovereignty and reparations to the indigenous nations. I said to end the death penalty, a CIA, drugs out of our community, cause the drugs are already legalized. Watch the police's complicity. Money for AIDS, not for dropping bombs. FBI, CIA, and the Pentagon dropping bombs on vehicles, dropping bombs, dropping bombs. Dropping bombs, dropping bombs.
What changes would you like to see?
Well, mainly we would like the system, the free life, the free all life, free our, political prisoners, free all political prisoners that's in prison right now, because we first started out demonstrating at the Philadelphia Zoo, and that's what we've been demonstrating for, as long as the movement here, not only for, political prisoners, but for, all life, animals, because animals deserve to be free just as well as anybody, any one of us out here.
Animal rights, political prisoners, and we're here with Food Not Bombs in Detroit, and we want to make the jump to say that, as well as talking to people about a vegan diet as a way of feeding more people and causing less destruction to the planet, we also want to extend our support to all of the people who are trying to preserve the planet from environmental destruction and animal abuse. Jacob Kennison, Ryan Durfee, and Mark Klein are all doing time in Utah because of an arson attack on McDonald's as part of a campaign against McDonald's and their environmental destruction as well as abuse of animals. Earth Liberation Front, it's a movement that was born in 1992 in Great Britain and grew out of the deep ecology movement, and it is informed by the animal rights movement. What they did is they took the types of direct action that were being done by the ALF and started to understand that until you extended that to multinational corporations, which were also exploiting human beings and the planet as raw resources, that nothing was ever going to change in terms of the situation for animals.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
The stranglehold that they have on us, them goddamn motherfucking prisons, it's the same prisons that they have enslaved that they call zoos that we go to, spending dollars thinking that the elephant is happy being locked up in a motherfucking cage. When I speak out for Geronimo Pratt, for Leonard Peltier, for all our Puerto Rican brothers and sisters, for our indigenous brothers and sisters, for the Move 9, and for the many people who had died before us, I also speak out through the teachings of John Africa, for the elephant, for the lion, for the tiger, for the bear, for the birds, for the trees, for the air, for the we fight for.
Tell me about these political prisoners.
Political prisoners that are, there's several of them. The main ones who we're fighting for right now are the Move 9. And the Move 9 were detained in '85 for refusing to move from their home. And were all convicted to life imprisonment for the killing of a police officer. But we believe that they were framed by the judicial system.
Remember was the man in 1978 when he came to my house and attacked me and my family? Charged us with the murder of a cop, James Webb. That's got my now innocent brothers and sisters in jail now doing 30 to 100 years each for the accusation, and mind you, listen to that word, accusation of murder of a cop that they didn't do.
If they really thought that Move killed the cop, they would not have come out within hours after arresting our family and demolished Move headquarters, tore it down to the ground, removed every brick. They would not have done that. They would have preserved the scene of the crime. They would have preserved evidence to show that Move killed the cop.
You know, when they sentenced my 9 innocent brothers and sisters was August 8th, 1978. That May 13th was you know, after that. They first sentenced my family August 8th, 1978. They came out to the house, you know, pumping tear gas in the basement. And you know, this was when the cop got shot, James Webb. You know, they came out there, they pumped tear gas, you know, thousands of gallons of water in the basement to try to, you know, they can't shoot my family, so they, you know, tried to drown my family in the basement, you know, innocent babies, you know, children, you know, adults, animals, you know, all my family was in the house and they tried to drown them. And this is the day that they gave each of all 9 of my families 30 to 100 years in prison for a crime, you know, that not only I know, but everybody know that my family did not commit.
It was impossible for my family to have killed that cop because all Move people were 6 feet below street level. And the cop that was shot, he was standing by a telephone pole, and we were 6 feet below street level, and the bullet that shot the cop shot him in the back of the neck with the bullet traveling down. And the cop was facing Move house. So it's impossible for a bullet to go up in the air and come back down and, you know, and aim on a downward angle. You know, so what we saying is, you know, that's a lie. All they wanted to do was shut Move people up. That's why they came out there, you know, and after they seen that, you know, just because they had 9 Move people in prison, that they thought that, you know, that would shut us up. But they saw that wasn't shutting us up. So that's why after that, you know, they came back out to our house on May 13th. You know, and dropped the bomb, you know, killing my father, you know, killing my sisters and brothers, you know, and, you know, they don't care about nobody.
All right, I wanted to ask you about the day that they bombed the house, and you were in the house. Can you tell me a little bit about what that was like?
What it was like, I mean, it was war. You know, this government acts like it only declares war on other countries, but those that run this particular country have long ago declared war on the people, and what happened on May 13th was just a crystallization of that. I mean, this government actually dropped a bomb on its people. What folks should know is that the initial confrontation didn't begin on May 13th. It began on Sunday, May 12th, Mother's Day. That's when hundreds of cops surrounded our home, armed for war, with 50 caliber machine guns, M60 automatic rifles, sniper rifles with silencers on them. Silencers are the weapon of an assassin. You know, that's what they came that Move with. A 20mm armor-piercing anti-tank gun and C4 explosives to make a bomb with. That's what they came at us with. When they initiated the confrontation, they started with the fire department aiming their deluge hoses at Move. Those water hoses put out 10,000 pounds of water pressure per minute. They had at least 4 hoses. That's enough to damn near knock a house down there. When they finished using the water cannons, then they pumped tons of tear gas in our house, knowing there were babies, women, men, innocent people, even according to system standards, because we had not been proven guilty or convicted of anything. you know, on May 13th of 1985. After the tear gas, that's when they opened fire on us and shot over 10,000 rounds of bullets per minute in on us. I mean, within the first 90 minutes of the confrontation, they had expended 10,000 bullets. This is unheard of. When they decided to drop that bomb, you know, after using all this firepower, the bomb ignited a fire that the fire department that had put all that water on us prior to there being a fire absolutely refused to, you know, put the fire out. They stood around, made a conscious decision to let that fire burn. As a result of that, and as a result of the fact that when we realized that our home was on fire and we tried to get our children, our animals, and ourselves out of that blazing inferno, we were met with a barrage of police gunfire aimed at us to try to stop anybody from escaping that blazing inferno. As a result of that, 11 people, 5 babies and 6 adults were murdered, were burnt alive. I'm the only adult survivor, and I was able to get one little boy out.
I'm talking about 11 innocent men, women, and babies that were murdered May 13th, 1985. On May 13th, a boot-licking, lackey, lick-spittle, no-good, handkerchief head-wearing, nigga, Sambo, ass-kicking, traitor, Uncle Tom, named Wilson, no fucking good, ordered a bomb dropped on my family, murdered my family, 2 of whom were my daughters, 2 of them, and some babies, among 5 were murdered May 13th, 1985, for no reason. People who were trying to come out of the house were shot back into the burning inferno by this Gestapo stormtrooping racist ass goddamn regime called a police force. Yes. I went to VA Lynn Abraham. My sisters, my brothers, the mothers and fathers of those 5 innocent babies did all the proper necessary so-called procedures that take to file when a murder is committed. I know murder because the whole damn world saw the murder on May 13th, all right? The whole goddamn world saw it. We went to them. We took every step, every procedure, every method they told us to do. This racist, bullbagging, freakish, foul, unlivable, robotic, degenerate bitch told me and my family, go take it over with the cops. And then put that her damn mind. The very people that murdered our family should expect us to go to for some relief. Just like the Jews going to Hitler and asking him to get a relief. Just like our ancestors going to the slave master and saying, Master, can you help me out?
But they know Move is innocent, and it should be clear to everybody that Move is not in prison, nor is Mumia in prison for the accusation of murder, but rather for being committed to revolution, to telling the truth, to putting an end to this rotten, corrupt, vicious, kill-crazy system.
You see, in my dream, we're not beaten down without a moment's compunction. And we are not convicted for having conviction. In my dream, there is no cry for restitution. For in my dream, there is no need of a revolution. So as I sit here and await my execution, I pray to John Africa, and I dream of freedom!
Here, drink your water. Show her how you know how to open up your water. Yeah, I can open my water. Yeah, you like the water. You gonna shut it? You gonna close it for her, Nani?
What's his name again?
Jabari Divine Jones Burnett.
All right.
How old is he? His father's from the 5% Nation.
His father's from the 5%?
Father 5%er, so he got that long name. Yeah, he lives in Philly, and I live in Vermont.
Oh.
And I got here yesterday, and today I said the baby going on his first demo.
And we must be upset when children are killing children in school because somebody is responsible, and it's this fascist-facing government. And I will not have it. I will not tolerate it. I will fight. I will fight. I will fight. And I will fight until there is no more fight in my bones.
All those who are serving terms, unbelievable, unmentionable, unthinkable for crimes that they did not do. And these people that set them up should go to jail. They should be prosecuted and punished.
CIA, FBI, U.S. Justice is a lie. Let them hear it. CIA, FBI, U.S. Justice is a lie.
Domestic law don't serve our interests. So we have to transcend that and start functioning under international law. And under international law, we have a wider latitude to accomplish our goals.
We have to make it so that every time the United States government raises the issue of human rights violations and the treatment of dissenters anywhere in the world and calls for the release of political prisoners, they are met by the question, what about the political prisoners in your jails, America?
What I want to know in all these years that we've been having demonstrations for Mumia, and the streets have been filled, not only in Philadelphia, but around the world and across the country. Where the hell is the FOP demonstration? I'm saying if this is supposed to be a government for the people, by the people, then goddamn it, we keep on speaking and they keep on pretending like we're not. That silent majority, that invisible majority, the fucking FOP, where is their support? I'm saying we purposely brought this demonstration to their very door. These motherfuckers is like thieves in the night. You know, they shoot you in the head, snatch your child life from you in a heartbeat. But when it comes to standing up, they know damn well they don't have no proof that Mumia is guilty of killing police officer James, that's another partner.
Say fuck the police! Say fuck the police!
And we should be mindful today, as we stand with Mumia, that Brother Gilliam in Delaware faces execution within the next 10 days. And he, like Mumia, never received a fair process. His execution must be stopped as well.
Once it has become clear who your enemy is, you either have to attack that enemy or admit to your own cowardice.
But I ain't never been to no White House march and asking them for nothing. We take what we want. Or we die or go to prison in the process.
And I'm talking about people like the Move 9, now the Move 8, because they killed Merrill Africa. They murdered Merrill Africa inside prison, which has really outraged all of us and caused us to move into action.
You know, I had a lot of things that I wanted to say to y'all today, but something happened a few weeks ago that took precedence over everything. That was the death of our sister Merle Africa, a freedom fighter, a soldier who died in prison after 20 years of unjust imprisonment. And what happened to Merle should crystallize to everybody out here the need for us to fight for, take a stand for our soldiers, our freedom fighters locked down in these prisons. No more should a person have to rot in prison like Merle did for 20 years despite their innocence.
We're on the brink of armed struggle, that they keep locking up our sons, our daughters, our loved ones left and right, and we have to do something extreme to stop that process.
There's been some work done at the local high school there, Berkeley High School, and they plan to do a walkout today at 12 o'clock noon.
The people have to struggle. The people have to get together. Without the people getting together, nothing will happen. And people forget that in this society. We gotta get together. We just gotta fuck shit up. We gotta show them we're not gonna be put down. That's what it means to me.
Just want to talk a little bit about Students for Jericho. We put together 20 buses from New York. We wanted to reach out all across the country. So brothers and sisters, reach out to us, because today's only day one. Reach out to us, email us, studentsforjericho@jericho98.com. Hit our website, www.jericho98.com.
Now, I can see from here, we have a broad section of support here for U.S. political prisoners. And it's very important to mention that when I ask anyone to endorse or support each particular ideology of all these political prisoners, the important point is that we are fighting for amnesty for these political prisoners, and also we are fighting for our right to politically dissent, to politically organize, to do what we are doing today right now. You gotta remember that. We must get support from all communities in order to get these prisoners out.
I also want to say that demonstrations are good. They're very good. But we have to go back to where we came from and carry the word and do the work and organize to build resistance.
But sometimes it becomes very tiring to always see our people marching and begging, marching and sloganeering, and marching and meeting each other, having reunions, patting each other on the back. I ain't seen you in years, and then forget about what you're here for. So when we march, we have to make these things work, because we don't like to march.
Would you rather be at home?
Huh?
Would you rather be at home?
Yeah.
Yeah? You don't think this is going to do any good?
What?
You don't think this is going to do any good?
I don't think it's gonna. Well, I'm not gonna say it's not gonna work, but I just don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen.
This is Alicia Rodriguez, one of my daughters. She's presently incarcerated in Dublin, California. She has 85 years sentence.
How do you survive yourself? I mean, what have you done to be able to withstand this agony?
Well, I'm part of a community, and I have a family we're very close. I have friends and sympathizers that are very close, but also a member of the community that have been very supportive. If I were by myself, I wouldn't be able to survive, but I belong to a people that is supporting us all the way. It's not easy, but we're doing it.
Sunday Akoli said to me, when you get out, don't dig the hole under the prison that we were talking about. Just try to build the movement, and the movement will free us.
25 years ago, I was charged with 3 capital crimes: murder, kidnapping, and conspiracy. 25 years ago, my life was saved by a determined and united and organized movement to free all political prisoners. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank the elder generation who helped make that a possibility, and to pass on the legacy and leadership to the younger generation.
The movement never died. The people are still alive. For the last 15 years, though, I didn't see any really strong student political activity. And during the 60s, that was the foundation of a lot of our big marches that we had. I mean, there was hundreds of thousands of people that were out in the streets. And today, of course, we see the beginnings of a new student movement. And to me, as a senior I feel pretty damn good that, that finally it's clicking in again, you know. And I've you know, for 60, 70, 80, 30 some years, you know, I've been waiting for this to see it come back again. So I feel good about it.
It's the youth that have to continue the struggle. Without youth, the struggle won't go on. We need them.
The thing that's sticking straight up in the air is where the tables is at, over where the portable toilets are. The program is not over yet.
Most of the people who are political prisoners were involved as young people, because young people have sort of always been on the forefront of political movements. It's like Mumia Abu-Jamal was 15 years old when they started an FBI file on him. He was 14 when he co-founded the Black Panther Party in Philly. It's like young people have a history of being on the forefront, and now this is our fight.
They fought for our freedom. Now it's our turn to fight for their freedom. It's very simple. They fought for our freedom. Now it's our turn to fight for their freedom.
Mumia spent his life, these other political prisoners spent their lives fighting for us, and it's like we need to be out there. We need to actually learn on what they've done, learn from what they did, and, you know, from the setbacks that were had, and go further and actually win this time, you know?
On the move. I like to let everybody know here, Mumia Abu-Jamal is alive because each and every last one of us. We have actually scared this government into taking a stand on whether or not they're going to give Mumia a new trial or whether they're going to turn it down. Because Governor Ridge said 1995, when, he did not say if, he said when the Supreme Court turns Mumia Abu-Jamal's bid down for a new trial, I will immediately sign the death warrant. Well, I want you to know it's been several months since the Mumia's case been in the hands of the Supreme Court. A group of people who had no problem immediately signing a death warrant, immediately jumping on every microphone that they could to state that they're going to kill Mumia Abu-Jamal. But behind the mighty power of the people, we have backed the motherfuckers down. We the people, united, are mighty force.
They are afraid of us. With all the so-called power, they are afraid of us.
You know, we're sick and tired of these people, you know, who get into these offices, you know, elect me for mayor, for DA, for governor, for president, whomever. And all they do is get your votes. Tell you, lend them their support. Put them in office. And when they get there, they give you their ass to kiss. Give you your ass to kiss. I bet you ain't one politician gonna go and demand that these criminals be prosecuted to the force of the law. Not one of them. They just had election day last week for governor. For what? For what? So he can further his license to kill people at will? Because he got the title of governor behind him? Well, what you should understand is that we are the governing force. We are the governing force. If it wasn't us, there wouldn't be no Tom Ridge. There wouldn't be no Bill Clinton. There wouldn't be no Lynn Abrams. There wouldn't be no Ed Mandel. Because without us, they don't exist. They don't exist.
This one that you had the power, and you decided to use it. Smartly, like guerrilleros.
Look, I'm a product of the movement of the 1960s. Back in 1965, I organized the first March on Washington against the war in Vietnam. And I saw the kind of social movement that it took to turn this country around. It took a movement in which they had to bring out troops with bayonets to keep us from storming the Pentagon. It was a movement in which young men got up and burned their draft cards. It was a movement in which soldiers deserted and say, we are not going to shoot down our brothers and sisters in Vietnam. This was a movement in which people fought against the police in front of the draft centers in Oakland, California. This is a movement in which religious leaders all across the country called on people not to serve. This is a movement in which they had to shut down the major universities in this country in the spring, of which Kent State and Jackson State happened. In order to prevent the students from rebelling, they sent everybody home and gave everybody passing grades. This is what actually happened. So strong had that movement become that it actually threatened to disrupt
the actual operations of the society.
So I just want to say, my time is up. So I want to say that this country has always relied on systems of confinement. Someone evoked slavery a moment ago. Slavery was a system of confinement. The mission system and the reservation system are systems of confinement for indigenous people, Native American people. Japanese American citizens were placed behind bars in internment camps during World War II. And certainly the prison industrial complex nurtures itself from these historical models of confinement. So I want to say finally that if we ever needed to build a radical movement before, we need to do it now, right now. Imprisonment is not a solution. Imprisonment is not a solution. Instead of prisons, we need schools and colleges and universities. Instead of 3-strike laws and mandatory minimums, we need free drug rehabilitation programs. Instead of supermaxes, we need free health care. Instead of bars and razor wire, we need affordable housing and jobs. Dismantle the prison industrial complex and free all political prisoners. Thank you.
Revolution is the pure solution. In other words, things have to change completely. You can't really depend upon justice to come from people who are responsible from the injustice in the first place. So it's just not a question of accepting a government, putting a colored person in it, right? And thinking that it's going to change things. The house was built on evil. It was built on the bones of Africans upon the land of stolen land of Native Americans. It's a bad house. It has to be reconstructed. It has to be taken down. But short-term addressing the question means organizing our communities, teaching our children, building centers of activity, physical centers as well as centers of activities in our community, redirecting our thinking, beginning to redirect our resources, get people off focusing on limousines and back focusing upon programs that help the masses. And so those are the short-term approaches. The long-term approach is revolution.
The thing I want to leave most in your hearts and minds is that we stand in Philadelphia, one of the seats of the American Revolution. And what we see here today is the face of the new American Revolution. You are the new American Revolution. Let's continue to march under the banner of Jericho 98. Let's continue to march until the walls come down, until the prisons open, until we're joined by sisters and brothers who are in, because then we still got work to do. The work that they were doing before they were snatched off the streets and put in jail, that struggle must continue. The bringing of revolution to this country, the end of all the forms of oppression that bring us together, that struggle must continue. And so when we achieve freedom for our political prisoners, the struggle isn't over, it has just begun. Let us stay together until we win our total victory. Thank you, God bless you, full speed ahead, victory is ours.
Joshua fit the battle of Jericho. Jericho. Joshua fit the battle of Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down.